My brothers and sisters, today's gospel provides us with a challenging message from our Lord. But the one thing we can say about Jesus is that he never tried to deceive, certainly, or to sugarcoat the demands of following the gospel. It should not be easy to be a Christian, in the sense that if we're living our witness to Christ, if we're reading his gospel and allowing it to enter into our hearts and to guide our decisions in our lives, then sooner or later, and really with some regularity, we will come up against the rest of society, against structures, perhaps even against laws that are not in accord with the gospel. And as Christians, we must stand and witness against this. Today, the church gives us two saints and a blessed to celebrate, which embody this for us. Saint Clement, who was our fourth pope, who was a martyr as well in the first Christian century, embodied this. During the time where the Christian community was still not accepted, still greatly persecuted, and yet he persevered. Some 500 years later, an Irish monk, Saint Columban, became a missionary to France. Being a faithful monk, a man rich in prayer and strong in his faith, he guided many to come to know the message of Jesus, to come to know the challenge he was for their lives, and the things they either needed to do or to leave behind. And his preaching grated against those not only in society, but even within the church, who wanted perhaps to be more comfortable, who wanted perhaps to make compromises with the gospel. And St. Columban suffered for this. He was sent into exile into Italy. But the thing he never did was to waver, or to compromise, or to water down. He remained faithful. And last, we celebrate a blessed, and one of my favorites, Blessed Miguel Pro, who was born at the end of the 19th century in Mexico, and who came of age at the beginning of the 20th, at the time of great persecution for the church. He discovered his vocation. He entered the Jesuits, was ordained a priest. And right around that same time, an atheistic government came to power that sought to destroy the church. Blessed Miguel Pro was initially exiled across the border into the United States, and it was made very clear that if he were to cross back, he would face challenges, persecution, and even death. But like any good priest, and really any good Christian, he knew that the demands of the gospel were not about his own comfort, but about seeking the mission God had given him, serving the people God had entrusted to him, and continuing to spread the saving message of Jesus. And so he crossed back. He was caught and sent back into Texas with the warning that if he were to cross again, he would be killed. And so it happened that he crossed. For a time he ministered in secret. He was caught. And the governor of the state of Tabasco, where this happened, thought they would make an example of him. So he invited all the press to Miguel's execution, which would be by firing squad, thinking that he would finally get this priest to break, and with that would get the church to break. On the day of his execution, Miguel had two requests. First, that he not be blindfolded. Second, that he be able to face the firing squad rather than have his back to them. Both requests were granted. And at that moment, where the powers to be expected this man to break, they asked him for his final words. And he said three words in Spanish: Viva Cristo Rey, long live Christ the King. In the moment of greatest darkness for him and for his country, he brought Christ's light. And that light led to a great revolution that brought down that government, that brought back the practice of faith, and brought back the witness of the church. And so you see, these three great figures in our Christian family give us that example, my brothers and sisters. Never to settle, and always to do what Jesus tells us at the end of the gospel today, to persevere in the life of faith. It's not always easy. But those challenges and difficulties which we face are good because they purify our intentions. They challenge us, they strengthen us, and purify our lives so that when we give witness, and to give witness we must, it's not to ourselves that we give witness, but to our Lord, who has come to call us into our heavenly homeland. And so as we continue with this Mass today, let's make that our example and our prayer, that we may follow the example of the saints and martyrs in giving witness to God and to his church in everything we say and do.